In this problem, we're given an array A with n integers, and we want to ensure that no subsegments in this array sum to 0. So like in this example, if you look at -532, this subsegment sums to 0. And what we can do is we can insert some number somewhere in the list, and such that we can hopefully remove all subsegments that sum to 0. So over here, if we just insert like the number 100 right after -5, then there no longer exists any subsegment that sums to 0. And they even tell us that we can insert some really large numbers, but we don't care what the numbers are. We just care that it blocks that subsegment being summed up to 0. So if we look at this case, right, the -1 1 case, -1 1 -1 1. So here this subsegment sums up to 0, so does this, and therefore so does this. So what we can do is we can go through the array, and then we can see, oh, there exists some subsegment that equals to 0. So we put a really large number prior to the last element in this subsegment. So in this context, 100 is really big, right? So we put 100 here. So now this subsegment no longer sums up to 0, which means this doesn't sum to 0 anymore. So then we keep on going until we reach here. Okay, so we now know that this sums up to 0. We again add a really big number here, 100, and now there no longer exists. So the final array would actually be like this: 100, 1, -1, 100, 1. And now there no longer exists any subsegment that sums up to 0, right? So let's code that. We're given just the number of elements and also what they are. Okay, we're given int n, and then we're also given what the numbers are. So what we can do actually is we can make a set S, and then initially the overall sum is 0, right? So the overall sum is 0. So in the set S, we can just insert this sum. And we also want to keep track of the number of numbers we insert in this array, which I'll just call answer. So then let's go. So we now need to read in the n elements. So we have some number which I'll just call x, right? And then we would increase our sum by x, and then we just check if we have seen this sum before. If s dot find sum does not equal s dot end, that means we have seen this sum before, and therefore there exists a subsegment that sums to 0. Well, actually, I can just show you quickly how that works, right? So if we have like 1 -5 0 5, right? Let's just put this at 8 and then -8, right? So this subsegment sums to 0. So let's say we first have 0 in our set, then we have 1, then 1 -5 is -4, then -4 plus 8 is 4, 4 plus 5 is 9, 9 minus 8 is 1. Oh wait, there's a 1 here in this set. So we know that this subsegment sums to 0. So that's basically how it works. So now if we know that this subsegment sums to 0, we add a really big number here. So we have to insert one element. And then what we can do is we have to do s dot clear. Why is that, right? Because in this case, since we added the 100 here, it didn't only take care of this, it took care of the overall thing. And what that means is once we insert a number, we don't care about any number prior to it, because it deals with any subsegment that sums to 0 that deals with any numbers prior to this. So therefore, we only care about the numbers that come afterwards. So what we can do is we can just clear this out, and then we can move on with the numbers that come in after we insert this really big number. So we clear it out, and then we say s dot insert 0, which you have to. Again, the basic example is like minus 1, 1, right? This sums up to 0, and we have to ensure that this doesn't happen, so we insert 0 at the very start, which is the same reason why we insert 0 here. And then sum equals x, which is the element. I'm going to clarify. In this case, x would be here, right? And to solve this problem, we're adding this number over here. So now this can be, so this is not part of some new segment. So we care about this number onwards. Hopefully that's clear. So then sum equals x, we will move on, and then s dot insert sum, because we always want to keep track of what the previous sums were, and then we just look at our answer. And I think that should work. This is 6, we should be good. Yeah, let's check the last one also to be safe. Yep, looks good. Okay, to D and submit. And voila.